the 11 greatest war movies made since 2000. Despite the fact that every war movie that comes out is ultimately pro-war, certain movies make the claim to be anti-war. Beyond capturing the artistic desires of their producers, as well as the mindsets of the eras and locations in which they were made, they thought not to promote wars. That is why they don't show much killings and destructions, and its actual horrific picture. Once François Truffaut stated this, "I find that violence is very ambiguous in movies. On the other hand, they are highly influenced by the producers. For instance, movies on World War II that are produced during the conflict may or may not have the same propagandistic intent as those produced after it is over, when there is greater opportunity for intricacy and nuance. The opportunists narrate in their wish. The reality to be considered here is that they are telling stories that mirror our views toward wars and how they change over time, just like other unavoidable aspects of the human experience. Unfortunately, for ignorant human nature, what use does a war movie serve is unclear. Or they might be simply revealing the innate violent essence of humanity. Allowing people to experience the power of these tales may be the ultimate goal of war movies." According to Sam Fuller, a war film's objective, no matter how personal or emotional, is to make a viewer feel war. Even while the movies included for this list of the genre's most important entries frequently don't have much in common, they do have that. Whether they narrate worldwide wars or tribal clashes, give a perspective that challenges viewers to think about and comprehend the reality of war. This list avoids war movie, concentrating on films that depict soldiers' experiences in wartime, movies that are solely about the Holocaust, and military science fictions. Let's start with a movie directed by Steven Spielberg, with Jeremy Irvine, Peter Mullen, Emily Watson, Niels Arestrup. 1. War Horse, 2011. A young soldier called Albert, Jeremy Irvine, and his horse Joey embark on an episodic adventure throughout Europe during World War I in Steven Spielberg's adaptation of a 1982 novel that gained a second life as a beloved play in the aughts. There, they discover only cruelty, folly, and horror, not glory and combat. In the middle of the carnage, Joey's improbable survival gives Albert brief moments of grace and hope. Spielberg always highlights the vulnerability of these moments, even in a movie that heavily references the attitudes and imagery of John Ford. For hoofed creatures and their lovers, it's a harsh world. 2. Napoleon 2023. Even alone for the care with which Ridley Scott designs his war sequences, his biopic of Napoleon Bonaparte merits a spot on this list. Imagine the movie as a sort of Napoleon's greatest hits. The battles of Toulon, Austerlitz, Waterloo, and other conflicts all logically illustrate the tactics of their commanders and the operation of the weapons. Above and above, Scott gives each a unique ambience and a disconcerting intensity. An opening scene showing a horse being torn apart by a cannonball establishes the mood. Here, battle is a dreadful endeavor in which death can come swiftly and brutally, sometimes in the form of ice, sometimes fire. The movie's portrayal of Napoleon appears less carefully thought out, even with Joaquin Phoenix's sardonic performance as the man, at least in the theatrical version of the picture. However, it's possible that this is the point. Someone with this level of ability to seize and hold power may not be fully human. 3. Black Hawk Down, 2001. In the first winter following 9/11, a receptive audience encountered this brutal story of an unfortunate 1993 raid in Mogadishu that claimed the lives of 19 American soldiers. Its politics are now up for dispute. Technically speaking, it's an amazing accomplishment, since Ridley Scott applies all of his directing prowess to a tale that is frequently chaotic and features a large ensemble of characters, which includes almost every rising male star of the late 1990s. Though he's never been known for his documentary-style realism, Scott employs his ability to capture the intensity of a single moment to weave a series of disconnected scenes into a cohesive, well-developed narrative in this instance. Once criticized for elevating violence above all else, it now appears to be more about the dangers of thinking that U.S. power alone can resolve a nation in crisis. 4. Jarhead, 2005. Sam Mendes' war film Jarhead, which is based on Anthony Swofford's account of his experiences serving in the Marines during the Persian Gulf War, depicts a war in which the men never quite engage in combat. Rather than being on the front lines of combat, Jake Gyllenhaal's character Swafford and his unit, which also stars Jamie Foxx and Peter Sarsgaard, witness the insanity of war through their experiences during basic training and in the almost surreal Kuwaiti desert, which was brilliantly photographed by cinematographer Roger Deakins. Other war films concentrate on fighting, but Jarhead explores what it means to be a soldier, from the relationships made while serving together to the ways that life outside the military can begin to seem less genuine than the reality made within the ranks. 5. Che, 2008. The two-part film Che, directed by Steven Soderbergh, combines elements of a war film and biographical chronicling the tale of Marxist revolutionary Che Guevara, Benicio del Toro, via his roles in two victorious revolutions, one in Cuba and one in Bolivia. Both halves provide a practical illustration of how guerrilla warfare operates, both successfully and unsuccessfully. Soderbergh gives each one a unique aesthetic and filming approach. The first half's exciting door-to-door urban battle is replaced by the second half's disarray and failure. Del Toro's mysterious acting serves as their focal point, and together they paint a picture of a complicated individual who transcends the t-shirt symbolism of potential revolutionaries. 6. Da 5 Bloods 2020, Spike Lee's. Da 5 Bloods is an adventure film that tells the brutal story of black soldiers' experiences in the Vietnam War and is a biting critique of American cultural imperialism. It follows four veterans, Paul, Otis, Eddie, and Melvin, as they return to Vietnam in search of a treasure that they had to leave behind during a battle that claimed the life of their idealistic leader, Norman Chadwick Boseman. The movie shows flashbacks to the men's experiences during the conflict, which forces each man to consider where the years have led him. Lee often finds creative ways to conflate Vietnam's history, present, and war films, such as when he has the elder actors play themselves in flashbacks or when a scene takes place at a real-life nightclub called Apocalypse Now. The aftermath of the conflict has found its incarnation in Lindo's gut-wrenching performance as a morally bankrupt powder keg donning a MAGA cap. 7. 1917, 2019. In Sam Mendes' World War I story, two British lance corporals, George Mackay and Dean Charles Chapman, are tasked with carrying a word that an impending attack needs to be canceled. Mendes draws influence from his grandfather's wartime tales for this story. This concept culminates in a single, continuous scenario that depicts a day-long tour of experiences related to World War I, including a visit with a civilian stranded in a combat zone, a trek through enemy trenches, a contact with a crashed pilot, and finally, a charge along the front lines. As a result, the experience is both engrossing and frequently horrifying, with every scene acting as a reminder of the chaos and misery of battle, as well as the individual lives that are so readily lost when losses are reduced to mere statistics. 8. Letters from Iwo Jima, 2006. Flags of Our Fathers portrayed the Battle of Iwo Jima and its aftermath from the American perspective. Letters from Iwo Jima, Clint Eastwood's companion piece, examined the incident from the viewpoint of Japanese soldiers. Eastwood relentlessly captures the desperate last fight of the Japanese soldiers, who were defending their position from tunnels as their supplies ran out and they became ill. But it's the time spent with the soldiers, particularly a private and a general, played respectively by Kazunari Ninomiya and Ken Watanabe, that makes the film unforgettable. By the time the movie ends, audiences will have a clear understanding of all the circumstances that brought the troops to this point, from those motivated by duty to those forced by the unavoidable orders of the Japanese government, putting human faces on one of the war's critical events. At the beginning of the movie, Lieutenant Aldo Raine, Brad Pitt, who is in charge of a troop of Jewish American soldiers, is pitted against the ruthless but charming SS Colonel Hans Landa, Christoph Waltz, indirectly. Before Bastards finally reveals itself as a historical revenge film. Tarantino explores a wide range of topics as his film moves toward its pivotal Parisian confrontation, including the racial subtext of King Kong, the effectiveness of propaganda, and the ways that various war film genres and eras have interpreted World War II. Thanks in large part to Melanie Laurent's role as the lone survivor of an opening scene whereby Landa searches for a Jewish family in hiding, it's bold and humorous, but also filled with a sense of melancholy and loss. It serves as a reminder that, despite their ability to change history and even provide a chance for vengeance, motion pictures are unable to truly undo the past. 10. Dunkirk, 2017. By presenting the event in 3 distinct eras simultaneously, Christopher Nolan's audacious portrayal of the Dunkirk evacuation, a humiliating 1940 failure that aided the German cause, tries to convey the entire breadth of the incident. The first one is a week-long story about some troops who become stuck. In the second, a day's worth of events unfolds as people try to save soldiers via boat. 1 hour is all that is covered in the third, in which a pilot storms the beach by air. What may have been a mental workout gradually increases the tension in 3 different ways. The spirit of a country urgently searching for glimmer of hope in the face of dire circumstances is captured in a powerfully emotional climax and moving denouement. 11. The Hurt Locker, 2008. Perhaps because the Iraq War was still the focus of intense controversy when the movies first came out, and still is, the general movie-going public has shown a significant reluctance to watch films about it. The Hurt Locker, directed by Kathryn Bigelow and winner of Best Picture and Best Director awards, is one exception. It emphasizes the horrific experiences of an explosive ordnance disposal squad under the command of William James, Jeremy Renner, while acknowledging the political undertones of the battle. Bigelow portrays the gravity of a profession where even the smallest error can result in death, and how the experience can become so overwhelming that clinging to a different way of life begins to seem unfeasible.